Chapter 1. Barbarians at the Gate. The man descending the path looked perfectly ordinary. His thinning white hair was well kept, and nothing about his brilliant white toga trimmed with gold seemed amiss. It was clear from his unblemished pale skin and veiny, bulbous nose that he had spent his life in the shade, drinking the days away while others toiled away under the blazing sun in his place. The country home on the cliffs behind him glittered like a pearl against the azure blue of the sea, making it clear that he was someone of wealth, of position, an important patrician or senator who made up Rome's ruling class. But to Vesper, in her sight beyond the mundane world, he was a harbinger of death and destruction, a parasite to be purged from the world. "How many is this?" Vesper asked, keeping her eyes locked on the man coming down the hill, reluctant to look at the hooded woman beside her. The woman was silent for a time, and Vesper thought she hadn't heard her. She was about to ask the question again when the woman answered in a hollow, cold voice. 33, she said. "It feels like more," Vesper said, her stomach churning with worry. "I don't know if I have the stomach for so much bloodshed. I just want this to be over. I want to go home." "We have many more to go. Almost half the Senate. Once we are finished, you and your Celt can leave." "By Olodumare," Vesper replied, shaking her head. "How could you have let this happen, Lucilla?" The hooded woman stiffened at the use of her name, her voice trembling as she continued, "I was desperate to live and had little choice." "Apologies," Vesper said as the man closed the distance, close enough that she could see the smouldering hate in his narrow gaze. "The Empire thinks Ania Aurelia Galleria Lucilla is dead. Who am I to say different?" "Gratitude, but you can call me by my given name, but we should be careful." "What is the meaning of all this?" the man shouted before Lucilla could finish her thought, stopping a short distance away, the loose ends of his toga fluttering the constant breeze from the gulf. "What right do you have to bring the Legion to my door?" Vesper took a glance at the legionnaires assembled behind her. 2 full centuries of hardened men prepared to execute this traitor to the Empire. Clearing her throat, she strode up the hill to meet the waiting senator, stopping short a few feet from him, not daring to move closer. "Senator Decimus Haterius Agrippa, by order of Commodus, Imperator of Rome, your lands and life are now considered forfeit. I demand that you surrender peacefully and be returned to Rome for execution." The senator scoffed, his nostrils flaring as he drew himself up. "Commodus has no right. I am a senator of—" "You are no Roman?" Vesper interrupted, glancing to her side and motioning to Lucilla to stand ready. She nodded, her hood keeping her face hidden. Returning her attention to the senator, Vesper met his gaze, her eyes drilling into his as she continued. "You are an impostor wearing another man's skin, a barbarian at the gate. Come peacefully and we will grant you a quick death, the final death." Lucilla rasped. The senator wrinkled his nose, his eyes unblinking as he gave her a challenging look. "Come and take me." Now Vesper sucked in a deep breath and was about to surge forward when Lucilla's arm shot across her chest, holding her back. "Wait," she rasped. "Look beyond this world." Vesper's brow came together and she took a step back, her gaze shifting slightly to the world beyond to observe the weave, the thread of reality that connected them all. She gasped when she saw the ragged tier, the rotted cloth of corruption that surrounded this place and formed a void that went beyond the bounds of the natural world, to a dark, dismal place where the souls of the damned thrived. A bitter frown crossed Vesper's face and she shook her head. "And suffer an early death by passing through the barrier you've created here?" she asked, eyeing the swirling chaos in front of them. For a moment she thought it was a trick, an illusion to frighten her. But then a cold wind blew over her from the other side out of the void, numbing her flesh and seeping into her bones. The Sandawei barrier was something she'd never seen before. A portal between the worlds of the living and the dead, where a single step would send her to the world of the damned to be consumed by them. It was a promise of death and damnation, and Vesper's brows came together as she searched for a way around the phenomenon, cursing under her breath when she saw it stretched around the estate. Senator Decimus looked down his nose at her, his lips twisting to a frown. "You must be the Oz witch I have heard about," he began, crossing his arms. "It is a pity that Commodus executed all of your tribe. I would have loved to meet them in battle, for my spear to taste their blood." Vesper barred her teeth, pointing at him with her chin. "Lower the barrier. You can try with me," she said, "but I doubt it will turn out the way you wish." The hooded woman rested a calming hand on Vesper's shoulder, holding her back from touching the barrier as she threw off her hood, revealing a crown of brown hair that framed her face, a face once considered beautiful, but was now covered with a mess of crisscrossing scars. "Hello, Decimus. Good to see you once again." The senator fell back, his words catching in his throat before he managed to calm his breathing. "Lucilla," he stammered. You cannot be here. You are banished, lost amongst the damned by the matron herself." "Yet here I am," Lucilla replied, a slow smile creeping across her face. "But how?" "It does not matter," she continued, speaking over him. "You were one of the first Mother Abyra converted, were you not? I bore witness to your death, watched as the Sandawei soul that now possesses you entered your body. I am here to absolve myself of that act, with your death." "You cannot know such things," he sputtered, shaking his head. "These are secrets known to few, even among the Sandawei." "I know," Lucilla replied in a forceful tone, pushing back the sleeves of her stola to reveal a series of strange twisting patterns up and down her arms, bright red against her pale skin. "Your secrets are mine now, and I will use them to make you pay for every sin against the Roman people, for every sin against me." Growling, Lucilla plunged her arms into the invisible barrier, her face taking on a look of ecstasy as she spread them wide, tearing open a hole in the nightmare dividing them. Vesper froze, her jaw falling open in awe when Lucilla pushed the barrier away from them, opening a massive door through the chaos, spreading apart the curtain of darkness that only they could see. "By Olodumare," she whispered. "How?" screeched the senator, his eyes going wide. A slow smile spread across Lucilla's face as the hapless senator sputtered in front of her, her eyes never leaving his. "Mother Abyra," she began, showing her arms once more. "She marked me as one of your own. She opened the door to your world. But once I escaped, you, Sandawei, could not take back the key." Shaking her head in wonder, Vesper raised her blade above her head, turning to face the sentries behind her. "Take whatever treasures you find, leave no one alive," she shouted, "but the senator is mine." Vesper brought down her blade, and the centurion leader of each unit raised a short wooden staff, commanding the few hundred men to move forward. The legionnaires slammed their shields together, those in front holding their massive tower shields forward, while those behind raised them above their heads, forming an invincible phalanx that marched forward with ruthless efficiency and discipline. "Kill them!" snarled the senator, his voice booming unusually loud as the light around him dimmed. "Kill them all!" At his command, a volley of spears flew over the high walls of the villa, so many that the sun dimmed as a volley of razor-sharp weapons fell towards them. "Lucilla, to my side!" Vesper cried, ducking down as one of the many concentric patterns on her arm came to life, an ornate shield appearing on her forearm just as the Sandawei spears rained down upon them. They clattered harmlessly against her barrier. A smile came to her face when she looked back to see that the Legion had not slowed their advance, their invincible phalanx ignoring the rain of spears bouncing off the massive tower shields covering their heads. "The path is open," Lucilla began, her eyes never leaving the fleeing senator. "Finish this." "You've done your part," Vesper said. "Stay behind the legions until it is time to finish the senator." "Do not let him escape. He must face the final death," Lucilla shouted, raising her hood once more before departing with a grim nod. Watching the senator flee, Vesper opened herself to the weave flowing all around her, gooseflesh running up and down her body as waves of power, of potential washed over her, filling her with the power to change the world around her with little more than a thought. Her skin hardened to steel as she guided the ace from the weave, mixing it with her natural power flowing through her blood. Her strength and agility grew as she focused her power, until with a shout, she leaped towards the senator, twisting and flipping mid-air until she landed in front of him, a shining gladius appearing in hand. "You wish to test yourself against an oath, Senator," she said, her blade a hair's breadth from his throat. "I am here." A hate-filled growl escaped the senator's lips as the shadows around him deepened, a tall spear that drank in all light appearing in his hands. "O's witch, I will teach you the meaning of pain. Did you not think we would know what you have been doing? Hunting down those that we had replaced," he said, glancing over his shoulder at the estate behind him. "We have prepared for you, and now you will face the true death." The man that was once Senator Decimus came at her then, spinning his black spear with a vicious speed and agility that forced Vesper back on her heels, her gladius moving like it was a part of her, countering each of the Sandawei's attacks with a deft swiftness that was invisible to the naked eye. The only sign that their weapons had touched being the ghostly sparks that left a trail of ash coiling around them. Senator Decimus ducked beneath Vesper's wicked jab just as he spun on his heel, kicking out in an attempt to knock her feet out from under her. Acting on instinct, Vesper pivoted on her back foot, jumping up and unleashing a wicked spinning kick that caught him on his chin, sending the older man sprawling down the hill towards the approaching phalanx. Springing after him, Vesper came to a halt above him, cocking her head as his eyes went back and forth, from a deep brown to a milky white that covered the entire pupil. Just as she realised they were no longer alone. Sandawei warriors surged from behind the walls, hundreds of them rushing down the hill to face them, slamming hard into the legionnaires. "They must have a portal on the grounds," Vesper shouted, realising that the barrier was more than just a form of defence, but a direct link to an entire legion of Sandawei forces laying it wait. "It's a trap!" The battle raged on around them, and Vesper faced off against Senator Decimus in a deadly dance of steel and shadow, their weapons clashing and echoing through the air with the ferocity of their struggle. Around them, the legionnaires engaged in brutal combat with the Sandawei warriors, the hidden defenders of the senator's estate. The Roman soldiers, known for their discipline and might, found themselves unexpectedly matched by the fierce and otherworldly prowess of their adversaries. The tide of the battle seemed to turn against the Romans. Despite their unbreakable formation and relentless advance, the Sandawei's unnatural strength and agility began to overwhelm them. From the corner of her eye, Vesper saw her comrades falter, their lines breaking under the relentless assault of the Sandawei. Fueled by desperation and the need to protect her fellow soldiers, Vesper tapped deeper into her oath's powers. She opened herself to the weave of magic, feeling the raw energy coursing through her veins, filling her with a potent force that threatened to overwhelm her senses. She channeled this power, her skin glowing with an ethereal light, her eyes ablaze with the intensity of the power she wielded. As she fought, the energy within her grew, becoming more potent and wilder than she had ever experienced. She unleashed a wave of raw magical force toward the Sandawei, the energy crackling through the air like lightning. The ground trembled, and a shockwave of pure ace erupted from her, tearing through the battlefield. In an instant, the Sandawei warriors were obliterated, their forms dissipating into the air like smoke caught in a tempest. The ground beneath them quaked and fissured, splitting open as if the earth itself sought to swallow the invaders. Flames erupted from the fractures, tongues of fire licking the air, consuming everything in their path with a ravenous hunger. A deafening roar echoed across the battlefield as the unleashed power of the ace surged outward in a relentless wave, crackling with electricity that arced through the air like vengeful serpents. The senator's grand estate, caught in the maelstrom of her unleashed power, was crushed against the elemental onslaught. The sturdy walls buckled and caved inwards, stones and bricks disintegrating into fine dust as the very fabric of the building unravelled. Towering columns snapped like twigs, their fragments hurled into the air before crashing down with thunderous force. The ornate frescoes and tapestries that adorned the halls ignited, the vibrant colours turning to ash in an instant. Water from the nearby fountains rose in massive, spiralling tendrils, twisting and thrashing like the limbs of a great leviathan. They crashed down upon the crumbling estate, adding a torrential deluge to the fiery chaos. The once majestic structure was reduced to a charred and smoking ruin, the combined fury of fire, earth, air and water, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. The very air seemed to hum with residual energy, the landscape forever scarred by the raw, uncontrolled power that had been unleashed. Vesper, overwhelmed by the surge of power she could not fully control, collapsed to her knees, agony racking her body, heaving as her blood was seared by a fire that threatened to consume her from within. Her breaths came in ragged gasps, and her vision blurred as she struggled to remain conscious. The legionnaires, spared from the wrath of her magic, rushed to her side, their faces etched with concern, awe, and wide-eyed terror at the display of power they had witnessed. They had won the battle, but at a price that left them questioning the very nature of the power they had allied with. Vesper lay there amidst the ruins of the estate, the echoes of battle fading around her. She was a victor, yet she felt defeated, the weight of her uncontrolled power a burden heavier than any weapon she had ever wielded. Her journey had taken a toll, and in this moment of vulnerability, she realised the true cost of the path she had chosen.